Limbo, 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 limbo. What's that? It's a game about, like, death and stuff? Oh. Limbo, 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 limbo. You see a lot of people talk about environmental storytelling these days, and if that's what you're interested in, you've come to the right place. Limbo has no text, no dialogue of any sort. The entire story is told via the environment. The game begins with us being some sort of boy who's waking up in a mysterious forest, and we're just gonna start running. But first we turn around the opposite way they expect us to run and crush a little glowing egg thing to earn our first achievement wrong way. And now we continue. When I said Limbo is a game about death, I wasn't kidding. I figure out pretty quickly here that we're gonna be dying a lot throughout playing this game, and things will get a little bit tougher than just random pits with spikes in it. I take a simply embarrassing amount of time to realize that I can pull things out of the way in this game, and we're on our way. Eventually we come across a cool chained up boat, and it doesn't seem like anybody's using it right now, so of course we're probably free to just go ahead and grab that and sail off into the mist. Eventually when we land on the other side, we can pull the boat up and use it to help parkour our way up to the next area. Continuing on, we have a couple more brutal deaths. We'll learn pretty quickly that this is going to be a regular thing, and I'm not going to include every single death we have, but it is important to note that when playing this game for the first time, it's a lot of trial and error. You're going to die a lot. We also learn a harsh lesson that water is not our friend, so we're going to need to find another way to get across each one of these little puddles. The solution for this first one is pretty neat though. Again, just like the deaths, we're not going to show every single puzzle that's in this game, gotta leave something to the imagination for if you check out this game yourself, but we're going to take a look at some of my favorites, some of the most difficult ones, and some of the more story-driven important ones. For this one, we climb up to the top of a nearby tree and then push a broken branch down into the water below that we can use to cross. However, we also notice a dangling rope above us as we're leaving, so that's pretty interesting. We can use that rope to swing up, and we find another one of those glowing eggs to earn achievement number 2. We finally make it across the water, and we're greeted by a pretty mean spider who isn't super happy to see us. We overcome one obstacle, and another obstacle is waiting right there for us. It's Limbo, right? We go grab a nearby bear trap to launch a counterattack, and I know what you're probably thinking. We managed to trap one leg at this point, so that's probably hurting the spider pretty good and we can move on. Nope! Turns out that it's the fourth leg that really gets you. One unnecessary life later, we manage to trap all 3 of the legs and the spider climbs away. That's probably the last we'll see of him, right? Yeah, about that. We kind of walk directly into the spider's house, and the spider isn't super pleased once again, grabs us right up and begins wrapping us up in thread. At least the spider doesn't eat us, so that's a little victory, I guess, but now we have to figure out how to get out of this mess. Luckily though, the spider has blown its attention span watching TikToks, and it walks away, which gives us ample opportunity to break out of the webs and walk away. Being free isn't necessarily quite all that it's cracked up to be in this circumstance though. We do another cool segment where we're jumping on a boulder trying to roll it since we're still wrapped up in the cocoon and movement isn't super easy for us, but the spider approaches once again. We cannot shake this guy no matter what we do. At least we managed to take a little tumble that frees us from our web prison though. Moving on, we find another spider leg, but this one doesn't seem quite right. Something's just a little bit off with this guy. We run past the leg and we find it was being operated by another person. So there are other people down here, and for some reason they're trying to attack us. Looks like maybe we've left the spider behind and these humans are our new enemy, because as we continue pressing forward, they continue to set more and more traps trying to slow us down. Eventually we come to what seems like kind of a base area for them. They've really got it rigged to set off as soon as we walk up, and man, it catches us a lot of times. By the time we make it through that area, we find that the spider is once again hot on our trail, and he isn't super friendly with those boys either, taking them out as he walks through. This spider chase sequence here is pretty good. We have to avoid a lot of obstacles while the spider is slowly making his way towards us, but eventually we get to the end where we can unleash a boulder to knock the spider down into a big pit. That'll probably take care of it, right? So now we just need to deal with the remaining boys, but when we see something popping up out of the ground behind us, we're so scared we hop directly into a pit. Stupid. Come on, man. It turns out the beast hopping out of the ground isn't really a threat, though. This spider is on his last leg, literally, and he isn't much match for us at this point. But at least we can use the spider's body as a bridge. Moving on, we come to a pretty disturbing sight of one of those boys from before locked in a cage. Sadly, there's no helping him though, so moving on. Really just a whole lot of corpses in this next upcoming area, and we also see some sort of zombie guy walking towards us who walks into water and becomes a corpse as well. We come to our final major interaction with the boys, and this time they're armed and dangerous, so we need to lead them back through the level that we've just played, avoiding some traps while they fall in / get smashed. This is a pretty cool area as well, to be honest. The next tricky puzzle we come across involves getting 2 different weights to be at the same height that will allow us to run under them, so we need to pull on different ropes that will allow us to have enough time to actually make that transfer over happen. No real story beats here, this was just a cool little puzzle that I liked a lot. And our reward for solving that puzzle is a great one. We get hit by a mind-controlling parasite that forces us to run in one direction until we get into a direct light source, which forces us to run in the opposite direction. The only way to get rid of this parasite is to find some of these hungry mouths that live in the ceiling above us and get them to eat it off of our head, so that's a little tricky. After that, we delegate some labor to a hamster, squirrel, dog thing that we get to run on a wheel that allows it to start raining, and we use that rainwater combined with a pipe to fill up a little hole that we can jump across. Classic video game stuff. One slight problem though, that rainwater does continue to rise all throughout the area, so we need to do some quick parkour to make it through the next part of the level. And what could we add to make this timed parkour even more fun? How about another one of these parasites? So we're gonna need to run backwards and forwards through the level while the water is rising. While playing this level out, it felt like the timings on the jumps were super tight and it was going to be super tricky to get through this area, but honestly it really wasn't. Watching the video back, we had plenty of time, I was rushing for nothing. That brings us to the next mini section, the hotel, and it lives up to its name. It is a big hot L for me. I really struggled through this area. Eventually we managed to knock the O over, which drops a rope down that allows us to swing over and shut off the electricity, which allows us to progress even further into the game. After that, we do some sick ladder-based parkour and bust through the glass ceiling to enter into the next major area of the game that has some pretty strong factory-looking vibes. This area starts with some more brainworm-related issues, but it also adds in saw blades, crane arms, and boxes that we need to parkour over. But hey, factories aren't all bad, right? At least we get to use this freight elevator? That's something, I guess. And this hanging crane arm. Show me another game where you can parkour on a hanging crane arm like this. Oh, there's like a lot of them. Yeah, never mind. It's still cool though. We play the saw avoidance minigame one more time, but this time we add in some Tetris elements with some dropping boxes. Making it through that little factory section, we see another spider skittering around, so naturally we follow it and it leads us to another egg to earn achievement number 3, Alone in the Dark. But additionally, there's also a locked gate of some sort here. Wonder what that is. It's time for us to launch another counterattack on these bugs that are making things oh so difficult for us though, as we do some truly amazing stealth to grab onto this flying insect to move to the next section. And surprise, all roads lead back to this factory. This time it involves taking a tire around a section and then using it to wedge up on a ramp to hit a button to open up a door. Really thrilling stuff. That whole last puzzle was in service of getting this gear spinning again, and surely that won't have any negative ramifications in the future. And look, even more chain swinging based minigames. I really like these sections, they might be my favorite part. Next up is a section that definitely isn't my favorite part. We push 2 gears together that gets the world around us to start twisting. And this is a section that was not great for someone with such bad motion sickness like me. Seriously, the whole levels just start spinning around and it gets a little bit dizzying for me. But at least we get a momentary reprieve where we get access to magnets and we get to learn all of the fun things related to them. North Pole, South Pole, and the like. But before long, we're back to the twisty-turny section. This one isn't so bad, at least. We do manage to swing through the level pretty quickly. After we make it out of the factory, we see a woman in the distance, and as we approach, we get attacked by another brainworm, so we get forced in the opposite direction. But when we return to the woman's location, the whole level seems to have shifted and we're just right back in the factory. I guess we'll have to keep looking. Factory Part 2 Electric Boogaloo also has some great surprises in store for us with some amazing crushers that were a real treat to deal with. Really loved this section of the game. Eventually we do manage to make it through the crusher section and we see a mystery egg hidden in the distance, so naturally we're gonna have to backtrack to try to find that right now. It's actually pretty simple to make our way around, and once we crush this egg we earn the achievement Backtracking. Well, that's aptly named. After that we go ahead and hop on a minecart. And do a cool little on-rails parkour section. This is a really neat area. I wasn't expecting anything like this, and it's really cool how the game played with like the light and the dark with the beam of light coming off the minecart. When we come to the end of the minecart section, this is another one of the most difficult puzzles for me, and it's not even really that much of a puzzle. The minecart will run into a button that electrifies the path in front of us. So we need to get up on the path and run out of the electrical range before the minecart hits it. And even though it sounds easy enough, I was struggling, and this took me quite a few tries on the first time around. And how lucky are we? The fun doesn't even stop there. We come into another section right after where once again the world is rotating around us, but this time we're doing it in the dark and we have just a couple beams of light we can rely on. While fumbling around in the dark, we do manage to crush another egg and earn the achievement Guided by Sparks. I actually thought I was on the main path here, not a side area. Now that we've uncovered the power of minecarts, the next logical step is to start working with some guns. And I didn't really know what to expect here, so our first encounter doesn't go particularly well. So there are two guns blocking our path, one up and one down. My initial thought was maybe we could force them to run out of ammo somehow, but while working on that, we uncover the correct solution. And honestly, the hits just keep coming. Now that we've discovered electricity, guns, minecarts, the next natural step is the anti-gravity chamber. So naturally, it's time for us to combine all the things we've learned about, including elevators, box technology, avoiding machine gun fire, and another anti-gravity machine. And don't forget the tricky combination that comes from combining anti-gravity and super powerful magnets. This is not a combo that you want to take lightly, but we will need to master it to move on in the game. Our mastery of magnets rewards us with a zipline. Hey, that's pretty fun. I mostly just came here for the zipline, so I guess I can go home now. Just kidding, we're entering the home stretch of the game now, and this is another section that was quite difficult for me for this playthrough and the next playthrough as well. So now we've got some pretty tight jumps we need to do that involve hitting different gravity switches as we pass by to change gravity to land in specific places. But as we manage to do that, it is not quite all over yet. As we continue to move forward, the timing on the gravity machines becomes tighter and tighter as we move through the remaining section of this level. And as you would pretty much hope for from a game like this, all of the mechanics that we've learned through our time playing this game are being showcased as we move through this final section. But we actually managed to make it through pretty painlessly until we get to the final puzzle of the game. Now, we die a lot of times here, and a lot of them are really not necessary. They could have been avoided super easily, but I just couldn't figure out what to do. I was stuck at the previous section for so long I forgot what the arrow meant, and things were a little confusing. But eventually we managed to time things out perfectly. We fly through the gravity machine around the saw, and we break through this pane of glass. As we come crashing through, we slowly drift through the air before eventually we crash into the ground. And it really felt like the game was going to end right there as we hit the ground, but our character actually opens his eyes. We wake up and we get to walk a little bit more. As we approach the end of this final level, we come into contact with the woman we've been pursuing this whole time once again, and she appears to be digging or something, but as we get close, she freezes and the game fades to black as we go into the credit sequence. So with this game not explicitly telling the player hear what the story's about, there are a lot of theories. I think the one that seems the most likely is that you and your sister have died in some accident, and now you're in the place between life and death, or limbo, and you have to pursue her to try to move on together. And it seems like the ending kind of helps with that theory. But now that we've finished the story once, obviously we have quite a few more achievements we need to go back and get. And we get the one where credit is due immediately after we finish watching the credits. Sick. Thankfully this game has a chapter select, so going back to get the eggs isn't a super big deal, but it kind of feels like this game wouldn't have one. The first egg we missed is one of those classic situations where somebody hid an egg in a loose pipe that we need to wriggle free. Once we crush it, we earn the achievement Urban Exploration. Achievement number 8 is called Underground, and this egg was just hidden at the bottom of an elevator shaft that I definitely wouldn't have explored, having not needed to go for this achievement. Achievement number 9 is called Going Up, and interestingly enough, it's not related to an elevator, but instead one of the gravity machines. We need to do a little backtracking, and it's easy enough to find. Achievement number 10 is called It's Stuck, and it's another one of those pesky eggs hidden in the pipes. Well, Easter was a little messy, huh? And our final egg hidden in the levels is called Climbing the Cog, and that cog that we turned on earlier, well, actually it turns out you can get around it without actually turning it on, and when you get to the other side, there's an egg. That's a pretty cool one, actually. That might be my favorite. So now that we have completed the game and collected all of the eggs, that gate from earlier has opened up, and now we can enter through it. And you notice we start out in complete darkness. Well, that's pretty much what we're going to be dealing with the entire way through this area, and this is a pretty long area. So once again, this area was completely dark throughout almost all of it, and it combined a lot of the mechanics that we've used up to this point, starting with a parasite on your head, moving on to climbing up ladders and avoiding gunfire, doing some tight parkour around 2 saw blades that serve as your only light source, jumping over moving saw blades in essentially complete darkness based on sound cues alone, and finally staying in between 2 streams of continuous bullets without being hit. And this last section was probably the worst, to be honest. It was really hard to time out with the elevator. But eventually we managed to time the gunfire out perfectly, where we could climb into the elevator and climb all the way back up into the main area of the level, and we earn achievement number 12, Ding. But that was not our final challenge of this game. Oh, not even close. So, what is the final challenge of Limbo, you might ask? Well, the achievement is called No Point in Dying, and we need to complete the game in 1 sitting with 5 or less deaths. And trust me, we used every single one of those 5. In fact, we used quite a few more than 5, because this took me a lot of attempts. It was really nice to have access to the chapter select to be able to go back and practice some of the specific puzzles and parkour elements we were having issues with, but man, this took me a lot longer than it took a lot of people based on the times on the internet for completing this 100%. The most difficult areas were definitely still the hotel, like I mentioned, and then the gravity section at the end, because the timing, if you miss it once, you are just dead and you have to start again, and that's pretty much where we used all 5 of our deaths. But we did kind of manipulate things a little bit. Obviously you needed to play the game in 1 sitting, so you couldn't like save quit out, which was a good idea for preventing you from being able to do exactly that. But we were able to basically, you know, if we had an early death that was preventable, we would just go ahead and restart from the beginning, because it's not worth going into those final sections with unnecessary deaths. But eventually we managed to make it all the way through, and we earned the final achievement, No Point in Dying, and we can officially say we have done everything in Limbo. So, how did we do? According to howlongtobeat.com, Limbo takes on average 6.5 hours to 100%, and it took me 10 hours to 100%. I was really struggling with that final achievement. I had to reset a lot of times because no death achievements are not my friend. I'm so glad this one gave you a little bit of amnesty with being able to die up to 5 times. If I had to do this completely no death, I don't know that I could have done it. I mean, eventually I could have if I just kept trying, but I don't know that I would have seen it through all the way. Regardless though, as far as the actual game, it's really easy to see why this game is regarded as highly as it has been for so many years. It feels a lot to me like a more recent game that I've already covered on the channel called Cocoon. So if you are interested in Limbo and you want to check out something kind of similar, not really like theme-wise, but puzzle design-wise, I would recommend checking out the game Cocoon. Another thing that's super interesting about Limbo is really the story, and kind of lack thereof, but not really. It's kind of interesting how they give you little bits and pieces of a story, but leave so much of it open to interpretation for you. I was reading up on Reddit some of the theories that people have about this game, and some of them are pretty wild and actually do make a lot of sense. One that I saw was something like it's not necessarily the normal two siblings die theory that a lot of people have, but instead the game is kind of going through the phases of a person's life, which is pretty interesting that people can have those kind of reads on a game like this. But overall, what is there else to say? It's Limbo, man. If you haven't heard of it, now you have, and it's a classic for a reason. You should give it a shot. I hope you enjoyed watching this video all about Limbo though, and I hope to see you next week with whatever we're doing. So next week, we're going to be getting into the first of the games recommended by people in the comments section. So, just so you're aware, if you want to leave a recommendation for a game you want to see me play in the comments, you can feel free to do so. But just a warning, if it's a longer game, it's probably going to take me a longer time to get to it, compared to people that recommend kind of shorter games that I can bang through in a couple sessions. But as always, hope you enjoy, hope to see you in the next one. See you!